and thank you for joining me for this yoga class. Today's class will give a little bit more attention to a particular way of breathing called detached observation. If you're unfamiliar with this practice, I do have a workshop, Pranayama Part 5, where we go into detail on this type of breathing. But in a nutshell, it's allowing the body to breathe the way it wants to breathe without interfering and without judging. So pay attention, don't interfere, don't judge. At first this may be a little difficult. You may find yourself controlling and then judging yourself for controlling. And when these things come up for you, just let them go. Sit back into your practice, come back to paying attention, to witnessing, and allowing the body to breathe the way it wants to breathe. So let's begin. Sitting comfortably, draw the flesh out from the sit bones, reach the sit bones back, tilt the pelvis forward, lift through the waist, through the sternum, through the collarbones, broaden through the shoulder girdle. Close your eyes without clenching, just allowing the eyelids to fall softly. Bring your attention to your breath without interfering. Allow the body to breathe the way it wants to breathe. Slow, fast, stopping, starting. The abdomen, the back, the chest, the shoulders. Just notice, where does the breath move? Without any effort to alter or control. As you continue to practice this, begin relaxing your face, your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyelids, the eyeballs, the jaws, the lips, the tongue, the mouth. As you continue, begin to very gently, delicately move your head around. Not trying to create any stretch, floating just above any sensation of stretching. Don't suppress and don't control the breath. Coming back to center, opening into our first twist, leading with the right shoulder. Lift the shoulder, roll the shoulder around and down, cross the left hand over, lift, expand, and then rotate ever so slightly, not to where you feel any resistance though. And in this position, pay attention to your breath. Notice the rhythm of the breath, notice the depth or shallowness of the breath. Notice what areas of the lungs the body's breathing into. Now, as you continue to work your way a little further into the twist, notice what that does to the breathing. Three or four more breaths. If it feels good, begin to work a little deeper into the twist, lifting the chest, drawing the right shoulder blade around and down, opening the heart. A couple more big breaths. Coming back to center. Now, as you get ready to go to the second side, let's talk about this observation of the breath a little bit more. There are two things I want you to notice. The first is mechanical. When I come into a twist, or any pose, the pose alters the body's ability to breathe. It makes it easier to breathe into some areas, makes it more difficult to breathe into others. So that's one thing to pay attention to. Now, as we come to the second side with our twist, I want you to pay attention to two things. The first is mechanical. The very act of coming into any pose is going to change how the body wants to breathe, or the mechanics of the breath. Okay? So it's going to make some areas more constricted, it's going to expand other areas, so the very simple act of breathing is going to feel different when you're in a position like a twist. So that's one thing to notice. Let's try that. Lift, expand, rotate, come into a very gentle twist, and then really pay attention to your body's breathing. Then work your way into a moderate twist, and notice that it becomes more difficult to breathe into some areas of the lungs. So that's one thing to notice. The second thing I want you to notice is how your body responds and how your body wants to breathe. And allow your body to breathe the way it wants to breathe in this. Not your intellect, not your ego, but the body itself. And take 2 or 3 more breaths. Drawing that left shoulder blade around and down, lifting the heart. Coming back to center, circling with the ribs. And reversing directions. And then rolling out the shoulders. Coming up to your hands and knees, cat-cow. Coordinate with the breath. And then back to neutral. Now, there is a tendency to interfere, to suppress the breath without even realizing you're doing it, without even noticing. So paying attention. And it's like an onion, layer upon layer. The more you practice, the more you realize all the more subtle, infinitely subtle ways that you've been interfering with your breathing practice. One common example of that is sometimes your body will get the urge to yawn. And quite often we suppress it before we even notice it. So it never even rises to our conscious attention. So from table, as you do a couple of very gentle cat-cows, look for the urge to yawn, and then make that part of the cat-cow. Practicing detached observation. With the breath. And then adjust the movement of the body to the rhythm of the breathing, or in this case, the lack of rhythm. One breath a little deeper, one a little faster. Maybe the body wants to hold the breath for a few moments, or perhaps hold the exhale. And then back to neutral. Tuck the toes under, walk your hands in, and then lift your knees. Walk your hands in towards your feet, or place your hands on your thighs. If you have any back issues or tight hamstrings, placing your hands on your thighs is the better option. Keeping your knees bent slightly, sink the belly, lift the tailbone. Another way to think about this is rotate the pelvis until you feel a stretch in the hamstrings. Bend the left knee a little more, stretch the right leg. Bend the right knee more, stretch the left leg. Go side to side a few more times. And then lean in a little deeper. Take another breath or two. And then when you're ready, roll up, let the knees buckle, stack the vertebra. Be working next with some sun salutations. Starting off with a Vinyasa sun salutation. Standing in Tadasana. Float the arms out and up as you breathe in. Keep the abdomen firm, lift the chest, draw the shoulders back and down. And then release into a forward bend, either coming down part way or, if you prefer, releasing into a full forward bend. Roll up, let the knees buckle, stack the vertebra, float the arms overhead, and back to prayer. Now doing that with detached observation on the breath. So first, pay attention to your breathing without interfering, without controlling. Let the body breathe the way the body wants to breathe. And when the body breathes a little faster, speed up the movement. When the body wants to breathe a little slower, slow the movement down. Beginning on your own now. Let each breath be its own creation. Let each breath be an emergent phenomenon. In the same way that when you yawn, the yawn emerges. It's not you controlling the breath, it's the breath moving the way it wants to move through the body. See if you can find that in, not just in yawning, but in just the most simple, subtle breath. Don't rush the breath, don't resist the breath either. Couple more repetitions. Hold your overhead stretch when you get there. Lift the left heel. Flare the right rib cage. Lift the right heel. Flare the left rib cage. One more time, either side. A little bit of a back bend. Supported forward bend. Stay there or lean in deeper if it feels healthy and pleasant. 2 or 3 breaths. And roll back up to standing. 12-step sun salutation. Coming to the front of your mat from prayer position. Reestablish your breath awareness. On an exhale, release. Sweep overhead on the inhale. Forward bend on the exhale. Right foot leading. Stepping into a big lunge. Stepping back into plank, pressing down slowly with control. Pull your chest forward, roll the shoulders back, lifting into cobra. Push back into down dog and hold. 2 or 3 breaths. Draw the chest through towards the feet. Float the shoulder blades away from the feet. Lengthen the spine. Take a breath or two. We'll be stepping the right foot up. If you struggle with that movement, set the left knee on the floor. Lift the right hand, then step through. Big lunge, breathe in. Standing forward bend on the exhale. Overhead stretch on the inhale. Back to center. Second side. Sweep up. Breathe in. Swan dive. Breathe out. Leading with the left foot. Big lunge. Stepping into plank. Press down slowly with control. Pull the chest forward, roll the shoulders back. Cobra. And downward facing dog. This time, warm up the legs. Bend the left knee. Reach through the right heel. Bend the right knee, reach through the left heel. Go side to side. Warming up the calf muscles. And then both legs, 2 or 3 breaths. One more breath. Leading with the left foot, stepping through into a big lunge, following with the right. Overhead stretch as you breathe in and back to neutral. Chair pose. As we come into chair pose, don't work too hard. Start off with just a gentle effort. Float the arms overhead, draw the abdomen back, lift the chest up, take the inner armpits back, chest forward and up. And then as you bend the knees, reach the hips back and down. Now in terms of exertion, maybe 30%. Now notice your breath. Notice how the body changes the way the breath feels. And then notice how your body wants to breathe in this particular position. Not what's easiest, but what is needed. What does your body need from the breath? And begin to use your breath, not from the intellect, but from a more organic source, breathing the way that works for you. 2 or 3 more breaths. Now if you want to stay here or come up, you can, and if you need a little bit more work, go ahead and reach down and back with the hips, draw the shoulders back behind the ears. 2 or 3 more breaths. One more breath. Stretch up on an inhale, float the arms down, supported, forward bend. Give your back muscles time to relax. And either stay here or lean in deeper if you prefer. 2 or 3 breaths. Back to Tadasana. Trikonasana. Step your feet wide. We'll go to the left today. Turn the left foot out 90 degrees. Take your right heel, lift it, take it wider, set it down. Straighten both legs. Take your hips, reach to the right. Tilt the pelvis. Think about lengthening the back of the left leg. by reaching the left hip away from the left heel. Keep the lower rib cage long. Avoid leaning forward with your upper body. Bring the hips through. Bring the shoulder blades back, as if you're standing with your back against an imaginary wall. Now breathe into this position. Right hand on the hip or float the right arm. The head can be in any position that works for you, and if it feels okay, you can rotate, looking past the right fingertips. If you feel any stretch moving into the area behind the left knee, bend the left knee just enough to keep the stretch in the muscle and out of the ligaments and tendons. 2 or 3 breaths. Switching sides. Turn the right foot out, 90 degrees. Lift the left heel, take it wider, set it down. Straighten both legs. Take your hips to the left, tilt the pelvis. Lengthen the lower rib cage. Roll the shoulders back. Find a neutral position for the head or rotate. Left hand on your hip or extend through the left fingertips. Try to bring the right hip through and both shoulder blades back just enough to flatten the body. Lengthen the back of the right leg, reaching the right hip away from the right heel. And if you feel the stretch move into the back of the knee, bend the right knee just slightly. Now let the breath be full and smooth and deep. 2 or 3 more breaths. And coming up. Virabhadrasana 2. Turn the left foot out. Turn the right foot in. Bend the front knee. If that's too easy, walk a little wider and sink into a deeper lunge. Shoulders square with the hips, back leg straight and strong. Sink into the back hip. Float the arms, drop the shoulders, open the heart, turn just your head. Now practice detached observation of your breath. Notice, where is it easy to breathe into the body? Where is it difficult to breathe? But also notice, where does your body and how does your body want to breathe? And sometimes your body will get the urge to breathe into something that isn't necessarily easy, but is something that it needs, that it wants. Take 4 or 5 more breaths. Couple more breaths. Switch sides when you're ready. Turn the right foot out 90 degrees. Lift the left heel, swing it wide, set it down. Bend the right knee to 90 degrees. Stop. Square up your shoulders with your hips. Straighten the back leg. Strengthen the back leg. Sink into that back hip.
through the waist. Float the arms. Drop the shoulders, open the heart, turn your head. Again. Notice and allow your body to respond to the pose with its breath. The body may want to breathe shallow, it may want to breathe deeply. Four or five more breaths. Couple breaths. And coming up, turning your feet pigeon-toed. Releasing into a forward bend. You can support weight with your hands on the thighs, or if you can reach the floor without straining, that's fine. Lengthen the spine. Lift the tailbone. Take a breath or two. Bend the left knee, move your hips a little to the left. Straighten, bend the right knee, move your hips a little to the right. On your own, feel your way around. 3 or 4 more breaths. Just looking for where you get the healthiest, most pleasant, pleasurable breathing and stretching sensations. Stepping your feet together, coming down onto your hands and knees, cat-cow. And back to neutral. Add a leg lift. Starting with the right leg. And then decide whether or not to lift the left arm as well. Couple of breaths, holding as a static pose. And then bringing the hands and knees to the floor. Couple of cat-cows. Left leg. And then decide whether or not to lift the right arm. Hold. Take a breath or two. Couple cat-cows. And back to table. We're working next with the back roll. If you have a blanket handy, or if you have your own back roll, you can get a head start. Take your blanket, if you're using a blanket, Fold it lengthwise, and then starting from one edge, begin to roll. Drag the blanket to you as you're rolling, just to keep a little tension. And then you can either unroll it or roll it up larger. I've got a video on how to make and how to use your back roll. So if you are unfamiliar with this, you can find that on my website. I'm going to start with the roller in the upper back. You can either support your head, or you can extend the arms, or you can bend the elbows. But don't bring your hands down to your sides. Keep your arms positioned so your elbows are above the line of the roller. If you cannot relax comfortably into this position, unroll your blanket enough that you can relax. Then, practice your detached observation. Notice how the pose affects the body physically. And then notice the psychological response of the body, the response of the nervous system, and how the body wants to breathe in reaction to the pose. And see if you can allow for that. Try not to suppress the body's breathing pattern here. Every 5 or 10 breaths, lift your hips off the ground, push yourself over the roller an inch or two, and then set the hips down and relax into the new position. Once again, noticing how it feels to breathe in this position. Noticing what became easier, what became more difficult, but most importantly, noticing how the body wants to respond with the breath. And then helping facilitate that by removing any resistance. Occasionally shifting your way down the length of your spine. Go for 3 minutes. If you finished a little early, go back and start over. The mind wanders, come back to the breath with detached observation. Couple more minutes. Keep working the roller down the spine, 1 vertebra at a time. Starting at the shoulders, ending at the hips. 10 or 15 more breaths. Two or 3 breaths to finish. Then lifting your hips and draw the roller out from underneath you. Set it to one side. And from here we'll move into a bridge pose. The head is looking straight up at the ceiling. Resist any urge to turn your head to the left or to the right when you're in bridge. Lengthen the back of your neck. You could use your hand to lift the head, draw it away from the shoulder blades and set it down so the back of the neck is long. Bring your elbows to the floor, either side of the rib cage. Bring your feet in close to the hips, outer edges parallel, spread the toes wide. And then starting with your abdominal core, engage the transverse by drawing the navel in, drawing the intestines up under the rib cage. As you do that, you'll feel the tailbone curl off the floor slightly and the kidneys tuck into the floor a little bit. Once you've done that, then begin to lift the hips until you come up onto your shoulder blades. Now, if you're struggling or straining, lower the hips enough that you're absolutely comfortable here. If you have high blood pressure, heart problems, at risk of stroke, or any other cardiovascular issues similar, don't lift the hips as high. Keep them just a few inches off the ground. For the rest of you that want to work a little bit more, keep lifting the hips, walk the shoulders together, and then you can either interlace your fingers behind your back or press your elbows down into the floor, or you can grab your ankles, whatever feels like the most natural variation. 5 or 10 more breaths. Once again, come back to detached observation. Notice where the breath moves easily, notice where it doesn't want to move, and then notice how the body responds, how the body wants to breathe in response to the pose. Does it want to breathe into the easy areas, or does it want to breathe into the more difficult areas? Does it want to speed up or slow down or deepen or shallow the breath? And let each breath be different. Just because the first breath was deep doesn't mean the second one wants to be deep. 2 or 3 breaths. When you're ready to start down, stop just before the hips touch the floor and curl the tailbone up and lower the kidneys down. So the kidneys touch the floor before the hips. Now, while you're in this position, bring one knee into your chest, hug it, and then bring the opposite knee in, rock side to side. This position helps to release any compression from the low back. Take a breath or two. Going to work next with a couple of cobras, a couple of downward facing dogs. This will be our last work for today's class. Coming onto your stomach for cobra. Forehead touching the floor, hands well behind the shoulders, fingers spread wide, feet together. Press the tops of the feet down until the knees start to lift. Shrug the shoulders, lift the shoulders, draw the shoulder blades together and down the back, reach the chest forward and up. 3 or 4 breaths. We're going to do 2 cobras. So, working just a little bit but not struggling. When you're ready, downward facing dog. If you have a lot of energy, use the next few minutes to burn off any excess stale energy. And if you are feeling a little winded, just ease up and be more playful in your practice. 2 or 3 more breaths. When you're ready, one more
cobra, or any variation. You can change the arm positioning, or you can lift the arms off the ground or reach out in front of you. Or you can use your arms in Sphinx or Upward Dog. Three or four breaths. Choose a variation and work in a way that you're enjoying what you're doing. One last down dog. This will be your last chance to work a little bit. Reach down through the heels, lift the arches, lift the shins, lift the kneecaps, lift the quadriceps, spiral the arms, hollow the abdomen, spread the kidneys, hollow the inner armpits, spread the upper back, and lengthen the spine. Pull the chest through towards your feet, float your shoulder blades away from your feet. 2 or 3 more breaths. Those of you ready to slow down, get a head start with pigeon pose, leading with the right knee coming forward, sliding the left leg back. You can walk your hands a little left or a little right, or you can drop to your elbows. Experiment, adjust, reposition until you find the optimal sensations, eliminating anything that feels unsafe or unhealthy, and then maximizing anything that feels good, maximizing the pleasure, not necessarily the intensity. Sometimes leaning into intensity feels good, but sometimes just backing off a little bit feels better. It's not about what you can endure. 5 or 10 more breaths. Occasionally explore, shifting a little, just seeing if there's another slightly different position that feels even better or healthier. Again, notice how your body wants to breathe in response to this position. Notice how the position changes the sensation and quality of the breath. Three or four breaths on the first side. And then switching sides. Bringing the left knee forward, sliding the right leg back. There can be some asymmetry from one side to the other, so don't assume anything. Look for the healthiest position for this side. Notice how your body wants to breathe in this position. Five or 6 or 7 more breaths on the second side.
allowing each breath to be unique, each breath to be a response to the position and the environment. Coming on to your back for a spinal twist. Any variation is fine. If you aren't sure, one of the simplest positions is to draw both knees to your chest. And we're going to roll the whole body to the left, including the shoulders and chest. With the left hand, hold the top knee, and then with the right hand, reach out in front of you, and then sweep up in a big arc up to the sky, and then continue to sweep out and over into the twist. Then notice, where are the stress points? If something was to complain, would it be your shoulder or your pelvis or your buttocks? And see if you can make subtle, delicate little adjustments until nothing is complaining. Only then turn your attention to creating more pleasure in the areas that enjoy the pose. Five or six more breaths. Switching sides when you're ready. Any variation is fine. If you aren't sure, hug both knees to your chest, roll your whole body over to the right. With your right hand, hold the top knee. With your left hand, reach away. And then in a sweeping arc, reach up and out and over. And then adjust so that your low back feels okay and so your shoulder feels okay. And then again, practice the detached observation of your own breath. Noticing where it's easier to breathe, where it's more difficult. But most importantly, noticing how the body wants to respond and allowing for that. Five or 10 more breaths. finished, hug both knees in, rock side to side. And closing with Shavasana. Knees bent or straight, whatever feels better. Lengthen the spine, especially lengthen the back of your neck. Draw the shoulder blades under you and down the back. Check your body for symmetry, but more importantly for comfort. Stretch your face lengthwise. Open your mouth, pull your lips into a small O, move your teeth apart until the cheeks stretch. Lift the eyebrows, roll the eyes up, stretch your face, take a breath and release. Give yourself permission to reposition, adjust until you're completely comfortable. Then turn your attention over to your breathing. Shavasana is one of the best positions to practice detached observation. Let your awareness settle on the breath. Pay attention. Being a full witness to the breath. Don't interfere. Let the body breathe the way it wants to breathe, without judgment, without being resisted or pushed. As you practice this, begin relaxing your face, your neck, your shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. Feet, ankles, calves, knees, and thighs. Loosen hips, relax the buttocks. The low back, the belly, the kidneys, the ribs, the chest, the shoulders. Relax the back of the neck and soften the throat. The jaws, the lips, the tongue. Mouth. Eyeballs grow heavy and soft, dropping away. The eyelids melting into the back of your head. The eyelids, the eyebrows, the forehead. The temples soft and hollow. Scalp and the crown. If your mind wandered, come back to the breath. Now slowly, lazily, yawning, stretching. And then roll to one side. And when you're ready, push up into a comfortable seated position. My favorite way to practice detached observation, whether it is of the mind or of the breath, is when I stumble into it backwards. What I mean by that is I'll be maybe sitting in a movie theater waiting for a movie to start, and without even realizing it, I notice my breath. I pay attention to my breath, and at that moment I resist the urge to make any judgments. I just notice how I was breathing, how I am breathing, and then as I pay attention, I notice how does my body want to breathe. And I allow for it to breathe the way it wants to breathe. Faster, slower, pausing, starting, breathing into the shoulders or into the back or into the belly, and then I just stay in that space as long as it feels right. Quite often when I'm driving, I'll notice my breath. And at that moment you have a choice: judge, control, or witness without interfering, without controlling, without judging. The interesting thing is, the very act of witnessing does begin to change things. But as it changes things, let those things change organically. Okay? Not trying to control how it changes, not judging how it changes, just witnessing, and through witnessing, you'll find things do start changing. This is Krishnamurti's solution to some of the most intractable problems of the human mind, like fear and boredom. Witnessing.
without interfering, without judging, without controlling. And over time, there's a very deep healing that takes place. If you think about a similar way, someone that is in trouble emotionally finds a friend that they can talk to. And the friend listens without judging, without offering advice, without controlling the conversation or controlling the person that is in need of help. Just witnessing, giving undivided attention. And that can be profoundly healing to both people, in fact. And so we do the same thing for ourselves. We give ourselves our total, full awareness without any judgment and without any attempt to control. I'd like to thank you for joining me for today's practice, and I look forward to seeing you again at some point. Namaste.